Hi, this is Suzette, the Marriage Warrior, and we're going to talk about what things does it take for your marriage to transform itself. So how do you transform your marriage? I'm going to give you three things. The first thing is love. You have to really assess if you truly have love for this person. Now listen, I'm not talking about the butterflies in the stomach kind of love. That usually gets over pretty early. And most people, if they're still married, they still love one another on some level. And the love I'm talking about is that agape divine love. Like, do you want the best for them? Do you still trust them? Asking yourself, if we could change some of the things in the marriage, are you still my person? And when you analyze that within yourself and your partner to figure out if real love is still there, then that's part of the transformation. You got to know that first, because it's going to take change. If a marriage is struggling, then it's going to take two people to change themselves, and it's going to take communication to do that. So once you figure out if you really love them and you love each other and you don't want to lose what you have, and it really has nothing to do with the children anymore, it's really about your love for one another, then the next step is, do you trust them? So to transform your marriage, you have to have honesty. And if trust has been broken along the way of any time in the marriage, then you have to reestablish that trust. How do you reestablish and gain trust again? A disclosure. You have to be honest. You have to be honest with what you've been feeling. You have to be honest about how you've been offended all the years. You have to allow your partner to be honest. And that has to be a very adult conversation that doesn't have hollering and screaming or defensiveness. Remember, the arguments only come because people are defending themselves. They don't want to talk about it, or they don't like what you think about them. And if you can just stay still and quiet and wait for the other person to finish their sentence and wait for a period, you might be a better active listener, because then you might be able to understand. The more understanding you have for one another, the more empathy you will have come out of you, where you can say, well, I get that. I mean, I understand now why you did whatever you did. And that empathy will increase trust. It will increase love. It increases the first two things you need to transform your marriage. And the third thing is vulnerability and communication that's vulnerable. You cannot do any of this. You cannot change yourself. You cannot figure out where your partner needs to change. None of that can occur without vulnerable communication. And that kind of communication is not only telling on yourself, but also being able to see your deficits and admit and repent and say, I'm sorry, and notice that you, in the way that you are functioning in a dysfunctional manner, is harming not only yourself, but your partner. And sometimes it can harm the children as well. You have to stand up and say, and take account and say, I'm messing up everybody around my house because I don't know how to control my emotions. You have to start regulating your emotions. Now, that does not mean you're not going to have ups and downs. It means you're going to know what to do when you have those ups and downs, and then be able to express to your partner so that they can locate you. That is our responsibilities in a marriage. But the first thing you have to figure out before you do that is, do you love them and can you trust them? And if you can figure out that as a yes for those, then it's going to require you to be vulnerable. Trust being broken in a one flesh union is like your whole flesh is tearing away from you. It is so heartbreaking because you have put your life in someone else's hands. These women that blame the men, they don't think the men have any feelings. They do. And they also have trusted and put their lives in someone else's hands. So if you're a woman listening to this, you need to recognize that they have feelings. And if you're a man listening to this, you need to start expressing your feelings, because some of the women don't know. Because if the men are avoiding, or if the men are withdrawing or gaslighting or whatever they do to not face the conflict, they're having feelings. And when they have these feelings, they need a safe place to express them. What makes it safe? No judgment, A. B, no criticism. C, a loving, empathic response from you, and to really listen to them. The best part about really healthy communication is you walk away feeling better, because both people were able to stand their position. They were able to empathize with the other one. They could understand where the other one's coming from. And if you can have a solution to it, that's great. If it's something that is ongoing in your life, you do need to talk about a solution. But if you don't, sometimes just talking to one another in a healthy way is healing. And so these are the things that you can do to start transforming your marriage. And you can start with you, because a marriage is like a cycle. And anytime you're in a cycle, especially a toxic one, anywhere in that cycle, so if you picture a clock and you have 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, well, anywhere at 2 o'clock or at 4 o'clock or at 6 o'clock of that cycle that you decide to intervene with something different, it changes the cycle. So you do have the power to change the cycle if you do something different. Now, if you were the partner that no matter how many times you tried to intervene, they are just not willing, then I would encourage you guys to get help. If you don't get help, you need to assess how much you're being abused, how much you feel like yourself, and then make some determinations to do something different for your own health and the health of your children. If you like this content, don't forget to hit the button and subscribe to the channel.